This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
Good evening, and welcome to the Big High School Sports Show, presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. I am Chad Holmes, welcoming back Jeff Gress, former Newman Catholic High School head boys basketball coach. And with my voice the way it is today, you're going to be the star tonight.
That's a lot of pressure. I mean, I'll try my best.
I'm going to do my best.
I'm glad to be back, but they're here to hear your voice, so go for it.
Well, not this voice, but coming up at 6:25, our coach guest for this week, one of your Merrillwood Conference buddies.
Yeah, he's I talked to him last night, excited to be on. We talked about using clean language, so that will be done, so he'll all be good.
Chad Weinfurter, head coach of the first place Auburndale Eagles in the Merrillwood South at 6:25. And our student athlete guest at 7:06, Taylon Jershely from Mosinee, multi-sport standout for Mosinee, and right now leading scorer for the Mosinee girls basketball team. So that is coming up here on the show. We're going to start off talking boys basketball. Wisconsin Valley Conference, Marshfield undefeated. 7-0 in the conference, 10-5 overall. Wausau West, second place at 5-2, 11-4 overall. Wausau East, 4-2 in the conference, 13-2 overall. Stevens Point, 3-3, down to fourth place, 9-7 overall. DC Evers, 3-4, 8-8 overall. Merrill, 1-6, 8-9 overall. Rapids, 0-6 and 0-14 overall. The reason my voice is terrible is because I had an exciting game last night.
Yes, you did.
Wausau West, for the second time this year, knocked off Stevens Point, 55-49. Griffin Lake, 14 points. Miles Walvogel, 12, all in the second half. Jaden Owie, 15 points for Stevens Point. Grant Schodenaw, 14. But it was big for West winning the first time. Backing it up, I thought was huge.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. I mean, again, I got done scorekeeping the Newman game, popped in the car, was able to hear the excitement in the post-game interview with Coach Lemons. I thought that was those are the cool moments. I mean, talking about the last time that had been done, the excitement when the players were talking, just a big deal to go and, Spash has been so dominant and up at the top of that conference for such a long time. And for West, in the local team that they are for us around here, going and getting that W a second time, because it was already hard what they did the first time to get the one on the road, and then the second one to back it up at home with a quality win. And it's, and with West, they just get the dirty work done. They play hard defense. They're going to make you earn your space in your area on the court. You're really going to have to fight for it. And when they start knocking down shots, which it sounds like they do, and they get some step up in that offensive output, that's, I think, been some of the biggest differences. Some of these teams they're knocking off that are suspected to be the top of the conference, they're getting that offensive output and doing a nice job at 11-4 and 5-2 overall, sitting in second in the conference.
In the past week, they were 2-0. They won at Merrill last Friday. Another team that was 2-0 during the past week was Wausau East. Tight win against DC Evers, 63-59 on Friday. Jesse Napgazik, 24. Charlie Cayley, 13. Jaden Garrett, 12. Xavier Edwards, 18. Sam Dassel, 17 for the Evergreens. And then East backed it up last night with a 59-51 win over East. Robbie Angeli, 20. Jaden Garrett, 15. I saw that Jesse Napgazik, I think, only had 5 or 6 points in that game. I'm not sure if there was any issue with Jesse because that's so unusual. But for East to win without Jesse Napgazik putting up 20, 25 points, I thought was pretty impressive as well.
Yeah, I think anytime you can have, that's the making of a good team. That's why East is 13-2, again 4-2 overall in the Valley, and when other players step up, when guys aren't able to do it, maybe their shots off that night, maybe they're getting defender after defender just hanging on them, and it's a credit to a team atmosphere and a team environment that they have. So for East, a good week. They beat a good Everest team last Friday. Everest is always competitive, solid, getting healthier as the season progresses. And then Merrill is never an easy place to play. From when I talk with coaches. So, and I know for Coach Garrett, I ran into him I think at the end of last week, and they had kind of been sitting dormant in their schedule because their Northern Pines game got canceled, and they had a little bit of time off in between that. So he had looked at it as it was kind of a good time for them to get refocused and have a little bit more practice time to work on their strategy, since they've been going game nonstop, it seems, lately. So looks like it paid off. 2-0 week for them, and a good way to set up to where you're going on Friday, which we'll talk about later for East.
And for Everest, obviously that was a tough loss. They could have won that game against East. Then last night ran into Marshfield, who's just so good right now. Marshfield beat Everest 61-42. Brooks Hinson 18, Chris Pohl 12, Landon Lee 11 for Marshfield, Xavier Everett 13, but the big number was Cohen Preby back last night. 12 points. Obviously, it's not going to be easy to get right into it, but just that he's back, it's got to be huge for Everest.
Well, I think this is a stretch. You want to start getting his feet wet in. They played, they're playing three of the top teams in three of those top teams in the conference with Marshfield, Spash, East. Obviously, they'll play West again around another time, but they have just a tough stretch. They were at East, at Marshfield, and then they host Spash. So that's a little bit of a tough streak where you want that leadership, but it's going to take some time. I know you can practice and say people are ready. It still always seemed like you still need that game experience that can't necessarily be recreated in practice to get your feet wet. So very competitive against East. Marshfield's a little bit of a different beast and how they present problems for teams. So I think that for DC Everest, just stuff to they're still going to be at a good spot. They just got to get everybody back to their normal game experience.
And real quickly, when you look at the conference, Marshfield, West, and East, top three, but fourth place Spash, Jaden always is what we expected. That 6'9" kid, he was able to step out. Nice touch from the outside. He's a great athlete. In fact, I would think at some point they're going to get him more involved in the offense. I thought, again, he is just, had some good finishes against good defense. And then, of course, with Cohen Preby, these are the fourth and fifth place teams. I mean, I still think there's going to be some interesting results.
Well, Marshfield has a little bit of an advantage, but there's two teams that could dump them for 2 losses. I mean, all these teams like that we're talking about right now are solid in this conference. And I think that there's a chance for some shakeup yet. Aoi obviously at 6'9" with his footwork, the way he can cover it. And I saw just on the news his nice reverse layup. Yes. I mean, that was a good move for a big guy that size.
Yep.
And then, even when he was at Pacelli, he had a nice jump shot so that he could definitely shoot. So I think, again, that's going to be another added dimension that just takes some time to get in there. If the coaches know what they're doing, they're trying to get dangerous by playoff time and finish as strong as they can at the conference. So I just look for this conference, as good as it is already. I think it's going to get even amped up more and have some more fun in terms of who's winning as we go down the stretch here.
GNC, a little surprise at the top on the boys' side. Medford, first place, 6-1 in the conference, 9-7 overall. Rhinelander, 5-2 in the conference, 10-4 overall. Mosinee, 4-2 in the conference, 12-5 overall. Pines, 4-3 in the conference, 10-7 overall. Antigo, 3-4 in the conference, 9-8 overall. Lakeland, 2-5 in the conference, 6-9. And then Tomahawk, 0-7 and 4-10. And I guess the big game was Friday night. Had to be one of the bigger wins Antigo's had in a long time, beating first place Rhinelander 70-62. Colton told me 25 for the Red Robins, but when I saw that Friday night, that was a major win for Antigo.
Well, again, I keep saying I'm talking to people, and I actually am. So one of my son's basketball tournaments, we played in Antigo a couple weeks ago, and the Antigo coach was running, so we're making some small talk on the side and talking about the games and how his team's looking, and he was just saying, hey, we've got a couple of kids that have come off injuries, and we're starting to gel better, and I think you're going to see us as a better team as we go down the stretch here, and to his knowledge of his team and what you're seeing is that they're creeping up there. That's a good win against a very good Rhinelander team by 8 points last Friday, and then they're sitting as one of those teams that can kind of get at people and be a sleeper. And it sounds like they're being improved, where before they're hanging at the bottom of the conference, kind of getting pushed around, and that's not happening. And he's happy with how some of his kids are performing on the offensive end, as well as how they're starting to gel as a team. So you you light that mix and you hope for good things as they go down the road. And I think, that's the one thing I got here and I kept asking you, what's that conference surprise? And we're like, oh, it's Medford at the top because they've struggled out of conference, which shows in the scores, but in conference they've just been hanging around enough, and now they're starting to grab some games and sitting at a 6-1 mark. It'll be interesting to see how when they hit some of those teams the second time around. We have a big one with them and Mosinee coming up and things like that. How are they going to do? Are they going to be able to hold that up? But I just looked the Girl kid, however you say it, put him up about 20. He's up for one of those shooters for those with sports awards. So that kid's coming alive too, I think, which is really helping out their offensive output, which is what they've been lacking a little bit in their scores this year.
Mosinee, 3 non-conference games in the past week. Big win against Marathon to go over there and win that basketball game 76-54. It was 52-21 at halftime. I mean, just really impressive. Braden Reinke, 22. Carson Balgord, 18. They had a game then on Saturday against a very good Kaukauna team, and Kaukauna came to Mosinee, won at 89-68. Treef Stoffel, 27 in that game. Reinke, 18. And then last night, overtime, going on the road, beating Xavier, 68-65. Stoffel, 19. Reinke, 18. But big test for Mosinee out of conference.
I like that scheduling. I mean, to go play a good Marywood Conference South opponent, turn around back-to-back when you're getting ready for the playoffs. These are great games. They have Kaukauna, who comes out of the Fox Valley area with a very good record and good team. And then Appleton and Xavier over the years has not been any pushover and get an overtime win. Whatever the wins and losses are, I think it's a good job of mixing those games up and getting you some really valuable non-conference opponents in a short amount of time. And I think 2-1 is nothing to be shabby on based on the competition they had. So a good week for Mosinee in those couple games.
Anything else about the GNC that jumps out?
Not that I can see right now. Just I'm excited for some of the games coming up, though, but we'll talk about that later.
All right. Marywood South, Auburndale, 9-1 in conference, 14-1 overall. Stratford, 8-2 conference, 13-2 overall. Marathon, 7-3 conference, 10-6 overall. Assumption and Edgar, both 5-5 in the conference. Newman, 2-8. And big game last night. Tom Weaver's on for us. Marathon had a double-digit lead at halftime, but Stratford came back and able to win it 64-62. 35-23 Marathon at halftime. Brusewitz 22. Landon Snyder 20. Every time these teams play, that's the kind of game it is.
Yep. There's not. I mean, you'd probably have to have a 20-point lead at half. Otherwise, it's really not safe. Teams come back, they creep down on those double digits, and it finishes out strong down the stretch, and you get the game that you want out of it if you're a spectator. For Stratford, just more of that consistency. They find a way to win. It must have not been, if they're down, putting 23 in the basket for the first half. Probably not a good, real strong offensive output, but they're sitting at 13-2 overall and 8-2 in the conference. Setting a mark where last Thursday they beat Phillips in their Marywood crossover game, and to go and do that, again, these teams, they want to steal the home ones. So that's at Marathon. That's a good win over there to go get that one.
Well, they need it because a Marathon won at Stratford earlier.
Yeah, yep. So good game for them to get the split, and for Marathon again, they're 10-6, they're 7-3 overall. They're still hanging in the midst of things. All these teams, Auburndale, Stratford, Marathon, it's all just a matter of a game. So it's tight, and more stuff can come if you slip up in the crossover game or if somebody beats somebody. There's still a couple games left over, so I think you can see some more jockeying for position. If Auburndale, Auburndale's in a good spot, I think, but there could be some more jockeying with some of these tight games.
You saw Auburndale 50-36 last night over Newman. Blake Robb 25 for Auburndale. Quincy Fender 15 for Newman. Anything jump out?
Yeah, Auburndale doing what they've done throughout the history of Auburndale basketball. They just wait for you to make the mistake and capitalize off it. So whether they're breaking you down in your defensive routine, whether they're conjuring up something in an offensive movement, it's usually based on the kids on their team are really taught well by Coach Weinfurter, the patience and the discipline to wait to see for that opening, to make it a quality shot, to find a good spot to take advantage of somebody else's offensive miscue with your good defensive positioning. And I just really thought that I would have a hard time because people want to play fast paced. People want to get up on the floor. And when you're not allowed to do that, which is what Newman likes to do, it makes things a little tougher. Newman had a couple runs where the game could have got out of hand and they kept coming back and hitting some shots, and it got a little tight, and then Auburndale was able to secure it, slow down, kill some time off the clock. So I was impressed with their discipline, and it's not like they have a lot of, like, the Blake Robb kid does a really nice job, but the other guys just kind of fill their roles and fill the mold, and that's the making of a good team, is when people understand the defined roles by them to make their team the most successful.
Edgar, a couple of wins, and they're a team that you've said you did not expect them to be where they were picked in the conference. They were picked at the bottom.
Right.
You just always said, hey, they've always got good athletes. They've always got winners. And, they're now 5-5, 7-8 overall. I don't think you're surprised that they've been able to pick it up.
Yeah, I think they obviously they matched
and last night, 20-point win over Assumption.
Yeah, and before that, nice win. Abby is fast-paced and athletic. I've seen them play. So they got them 77-51, which is a good W versus a team like that wants to fill it up and plays very heavy and fast on the offensive end. And Assumption, I saw play against Newman. When Newman went over to Wisconsin Rapids, and they have athletes and they have kids that can put in the basket, and they've given some of these teams some very good games. And so for Edgar to go over there and get that 20-point win, to stay at home and get that 20-point win is a good week for Edgar on their games. And again, they're never out of the game. They have the athleticism. They have that winning attitude that's just engulfed in them from their football seasons, and Coach Paul's doing a good job with his kids, and you see it showing up in the last couple games they've won.
Merriwood North, Rib Lake 8-2, 10-5 overall. Phillips 6-4, 8-5. Prentice 5-5, 8-5. Abbotsford and Athens 2-8 in the conference. Shawamigan 1-9. The crossovers went all to the south.
Yeah,
I guess that jumps out right away. And then you had Rib Lake, Phillips, and Prentice all victorious in the Merriwood North games last night.
Yep, and that's the exact pattern you see. The South is winning out, which is holding those victories, and we don't have any of the roller coaster ride that we want in terms of the conference fight where somebody sneaks one out. Right now it's pretty cut and dry that the South is getting those games, but Rib Lake kept Athens at bay. They needed to stay up top of that conference at an 8-2 mark. Phillips should beat Shawamigan, and Prentice won a tight one at 81-78 last night. So.
And CWC East Bondwell, undefeated both in conference and overall. Whitburn one game back at 7-1, 11-2 overall. Then Iowa Scandinavian, Shiocton 5-3 in the conference. Menominee Nation 4-5, Waiwega Fremont 2-6, Manawa 1-7, Amherst 1-8. We talked about Antigo with their big win against Rhinelander Friday. Whitburn beat them 61-50 on Thursday. Xander Barkey, 23. Jet Rogowski, 17 for the Chargers. They then beat Menominee Nation Friday, 64-59. And then on Monday, I should say, beat Pine, 69-58. So a good week for Whitburn.
Yeah, anytime you can consider, you got these games, these short windows. You play 2 days in a row back to back. Then you get, sometimes coaches may have a shoot around on a weekend there for the kids to get back into it, and then you start right with a Monday, Tuesday game in there. A lot of stuff goes on, and you don't get as much time as recovery as probably some of these athletes want. So I think when your team can go out there and perform, get the W's, it just keeps building the success that you see in their overall record of 11-2, and obviously at that one time where Bondwell gets them, and that's why they're at 7-1. But we still have another. I think there's one more game with that coming up later in the season. And
then CWC North, Tigerton 13-1 overall, 5-0 in the conference. Northland is 6-6 overall, 4-1 in the conference in second place. White Lake also 6-6, 3-2 in the conference. Boulder 2-2 in conference, 4-9. Gresham 1-4, 5-10. Marion winless in conference, 1-13 overall. Northland in conference beat Gresham 81-62. Lost the non-conference game to Almond 82-55 Monday.
And I think for Northland, it's like we talked about earlier. Tigerton won that conference last year. It's going to come out with Tigerton and Northern Lutheran, and they're those games right there. And Tigerton already beat Northern Lutheran once, so Northern's got to get them to share that conference title. And you see again what we talk about so often, that they're going to be able to beat the bottom half of that conference. And when they step out a little bit, it gets a little tougher, like when they play the Almonds and some of those conferences that have a little bit bigger enrollment.
Coming up next, we'll talk to our coach guest for this week, Auburndale head boys basketball coach Chad Weinfurter. That's coming up in a minute here on 98.9 WXCO.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck, yes. That'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Wisconsin, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show, 98.9 WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. And again, Gress has to take over because my voice is terrible tonight. But to help us out, talk about Auburndale boys basketball. First place in the Merriwood South, joined by Coach Chad Weinfurter. Coach, first of all, thank you for coming on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Well, obviously off to a really good start, 14-1 overall, top of a very good conference as well, with a 9-1 mark. Was this expected going into this season? And obviously you've had such great success at Auburndale over the years. What were the expectations coming in this year?
Well, you know, and some of the preseason questionnaires and people asking you how you think your team's going to be, how you think the conference is going to be, I thought it was really going to be an even race this year. I thought we had some great senior classes that all teams had lost, and then Assumption and Newman were pretty young coming up, so I thought it was going to balance out pretty well. And I knew we would compete in every game. And we've been fortunate to win, you know, obviously 14 out of 15 and win some close ones. So I didn't expect to be 14-1, but I expected us to compete in every game, and the kids have really responded well.
And Coach, what do you know, we see you guys always battling at the top. Every year this conference is a war. We talk about it all the time. It's a great conference to be in. What do you think, you know, now with all your time there and you know, being at the top and having to dogfight it sometimes and see all these teams and it's the same coaches and it just recycles and recycles and recycles. What do you think is the key to success at the end of the day to be crown conference champion, since you guys have obviously done it and you've obviously been part of it? And I just think it's not easy to do. So what do you think makes up that conference championship, or is there a formula or a name of the game to get to that spot? Because again, the conference is always so competitive, and it's just it's a war.
Yeah, I think it's consistency. I think, you know, you're approached every day in practice. I know that sounds kind of like coach speak, but I really think it's true. You know, we try not to get too high or too low, and I tell our kids, you know, it's a privilege to wear, you know, that Auburndale name across your jersey, and teams are gunning for you because, you know, anytime they're able to beat us, that's kind of a feather in their cap just because of the success our program has had. But I just think it's, you know, having a consistent approach and right attitude, and this group has certainly taken to that.
And the thing that kind of jumps out is the one loss came to Assumption. And that shows, again, the depth of that conference, that any particular night, whether you're facing a South team or a North team, something could happen. And again, not to say that was either a bad night or a bad loss or anything like that, but that says a lot about the conference, doesn't it?
Oh, I agree, 100%. I think if we're being honest, and if you'd ask Assumption, I think they're probably a little disappointed with their record right now. I think they had some pretty high expectations coming in, and they've got a nice team. They just haven't been able to put it together. And that night, they were. You could probably say the same thing about us, beating Stratford. That might have surprised some people. It's just the depth of the conference. It is truly something to behold, that's for sure.
And how about your personnel? I've obviously we follow you through doing the show a little bit, but actually last night being able to score keep, I got to see you guys play in person. I thought, again, I was sharing with Chad, just the discipline of your team, the patience. The way I look at it from my spectator spot is you're waiting to capitalize on what the other team will give you, waiting to capitalize on the other team maybe making a mistake on one end of the ball, and you can take advantage of that. And I just found a jealousy, or I thought it was of how patient your team is, because kids nowadays they want to get up and down the floor and they want to take off, and it's easy to just fly all around the place. And I was really impressed by their discipline last night. They're willing to let things happen, to react, to flow through it, to get that right process through what you wanted accomplished offensively and defensively. So I don't know, just a little bit about what you think about your team so far, and maybe some of the personnel members that are getting the job done for you.
Yeah, I heard you talking earlier about filling roles, and I just think our kids have done an excellent job with that. The three starting guards that we have, Blake leading the way, and then the two juniors, Peyton and Josh, They were workout partners this summer. I mean, they're in the gym every time I had it open. Many times they'd head over to Jordan Zimmerman put up a shed, and Blake Grab's family's close with them, and so is Peyton's dad, and so they're always shooting and just trying to convince Josh and Peyton to fill those roles. And once they started clicking, we really became tough to beat. You got Big Thomas inside, who I still think has. Even though being a senior and over halfway through senior, has a long ways that he could improve yet. And then a kid like Keegan Empey, who I wasn't sure earlier in his career how much he'd be able to play a role in the varsity, has just done an excellent job as kind of a slasher and really our athletic kid. And then you add in a kid we didn't have last night. Aiden Rabb was a senior who was out sick last night, and sophomore Jackson Gruby off the bench who fills in for Thomas in the post. And we've just had a lot of pieces fit together. And they're really coachable kids. Thomas Always' dad was on a state championship team in 1993. Jackson Gruby's dad was on a state championship team in 2000. Peyton's dad played on the 2000 state championship team as well. We've got guys who their families have experienced it. We've got a lot of legacy players, and I think that really matters to them.
And we do have to clarify, because it's for our listener, Peyton is your nephew and not your son, correct?
He's my nephew's son.
Gotcha.
But, yeah.
He's family. He's not direct blood that way, though.
No, unfortunately for him, sometimes he gets treated like my son. So,
Just
he
clear.
gets the brunt of some stuff, but he can take it. So
cool.
Again, we're talking to Chad Weinfurter, Auburndale boys basketball coach, here on 98.9 WXCO. You said it a couple of times, basically talking about the tradition that Auburndale has. You just mentioned, again, the connections with this group with previous successful teams. You mentioned earlier about the pride of wearing that on the front of your jersey. What does that mean to you? What is it that you and your coaches and maybe the whole school community and the community itself tries to pass forward when it comes to the success that Auburndale's had?
There's a lot of pride with that, with us and our coaching staff, because our coaching staff are all from Auburndale too. They all either played under Coach Anderson or myself, and so we take a lot of pride in that. And then, we make sure we don't pressure the kids with that tradition, but we want them to be aware of it and be an extra motivator. And for me, I'm really in a unique situation. I played under Coach Anderson. We were on the first state tournament team back in 1991. and then I was able to coach with him, and we were able to go to state tournament, win a state title in 2000 when I was on his staff, and then I was able to take over for him, and it's been a really neat journey for me, and something that I take a lot of pride in, and just try to pass along that to the kids, because I think it's really, when they graduate high school, I think it really hits them that they were really part of something special that's been around a long time.
How long have you been head coach?
This is year 17, believe it or not.
How have you changed?
I started coaching back when Coach Grass was the head coach. That's a long time ago.
That is long.
How have you changed as a head coach over those years?
Well, I was just thinking about that before you guys called. What changes? I think I'm better at organizing practice and using that time a little more effectively than I was when I was younger. I think I'm quicker to adjust to things. I'm not so stubborn that that we've always done it this way, so it should work. I think that's one of my strengths is I'm able to really be flexible in what we can do and make changes, and I think our kids appreciate that. And just like I was talking with Coach Schmidt before we played them at Stratford, and we were talking about how much we watch film and things like that, and I told him, and he was a little surprised. I said, I don't watch as much film as I used to, because I told him if I can't figure out what you're doing after watching one or two games, then I probably shouldn't be doing this anymore. So just all those things, I think I've become very, very efficient in what we do.
And I thought it was cool, too, just going back to the tradition that you shared, because I think at the end of the day, that's that prideful moment, what the boys get out of coming through a school system or any student athlete and coming to be part of a team is a big deal. And I saw Coach Anderson walk in, and he came to the game over at Newman, and I just think that speaks volume for what that small school community atmosphere for sports can mean. And I don't know if you want to add to that, or if you have anything, but I just want to point that out. He comes to the game after all this time he spent on the sidelines. That Auburndale, is a big deal that way.
Well, he's a fan now, and he's not afraid to tell us what we're doing wrong. He still expresses his opinion, which I value highly. Last night, I think maybe he was keeping an eye on the officials. He likes to do that once in a while, too, now that he's a fan up in the stands. But, he's a big part of it. I make sure the kids know who he is, and they really appreciate when he's at games, too. And of course, he'll give them some comments and things like that. And they're really good at, just taking that in. And they always have a big smile when he talks to them.
Coach, so you've had a lot of great victories this year in the conference, sitting at 9-1. Stratford Marathoner lingering right back there at 8-2 and 7-3, and a lot of there's always, like you said, there's a target on your back once you're up at the top of there. People are gunning for that because they know how, I guess, for lack of a better term, valuable that conference championship is. Going forward, and you talked about consistency, what does your team need to continue to do to hold that top spot, keep these teams at bay, and finish out as the conference champs once the end of the season rolls around here?
Well, this time of the year we always talk about everybody's got a scouting report on you now. At the beginning of the year, you might not know some of the personnel or some of the changes that teams have made, but by this time in the year, the film's out there. They've all played you once, at least through the South, and now it's about like you said, being consistent, but making those adjustments and just being a little more precise with all those details. Because like the games we had with Marathon and Stratford a couple weeks ago. That came down to a very, very small margin of victory for us in both games, and we were lucky to pull those out. So we could easily find ourselves on the other end of that, but we're just hoping that we can be a little more detailed, a little more consistent, and continue to win those close games.
Is the gap between first and the bottom of the conference a lot tighter this year? Because even just last night against Newman, who's right now at the bottom of your conference, you played twice against them, and neither one of those were what you call blowouts in any way. It feels like the conference itself, maybe so many great seniors were lost from, say, Marathon and Stratford and yourself last year, but it feels like the rest of the conference is tightened up. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Marathon was a dominant team last year, and then 2 years ago, of course, you had the fantastic Newman team along with Marathon, and then, we had a solid team, and Stratford was solid, and Edgar, and then Newman was young, and Assumption was young, and they were coming up and taking beatings, and now there's a lot of strong junior classes out there. And so we've been fortunate. I think, between us and Stratford, we've probably got maybe the best senior classes out there, and I think that's really helped us out. But those juniors, they're playing like seniors now. So that gap between the top and bottom is way closer than it has been in a long time.
By the way, I know that you got a lot of work to do between now and the start of the playoffs next month. Man, do you ever get tired? Do you ever wish that you didn't have to see Stratford 3 times in a year or Marathon 3 times in a year? Because, these are awards in the regular season, and so often you have to do it again a third time in the postseason. I mean, it's just pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had that discussion many times, the head coaches. I think it's something you do, it wears on you a little bit. But I think at this point in my career, it is, the old saying, it is what it is, and you just got to deal with it. But you also know that if you come through that and you get to your sectional semifinal or your sectional final, that you aren't going to play anybody better than who you played in your conference. So that gives you a little bit of confidence that way. But it is sometimes it'd be nice to take the road less traveled, but that doesn't seem to be the way the WIA is organizing things. So.
And I was going to go off that same thing right before Chad said it. I was wondering, do you, without diving into your coach's pocketbook here and saying anything that you do you throw a lot of wrinkles in at that point, or is it more of a belief that, we know each other, the game is going to come down to who can execute the stuff better that's been successful, we're not going to tweak it a lot, or is there a lot of thought process and maybe I can get a little edge by throwing them something they haven't seen? I mean, what's the thought process when you see those teams again and again and everybody knows each other so well?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think it depends on your personnel and their personnel. Sometimes there's just, nothing you can change because you already think you're doing it better. Now, last year with Marathon, they beat us pretty convincingly both times in the regular season, so we knew we had to do something different. So I think it's really, what circumstance you're in. But, I think every team probably adds a little bit as it goes on just to keep your team from getting stale. But there's probably little things, but I don't think there's too many big changes. I think last year was kind of an anomaly with us trying the box and one in the sectional game. Other than that, I haven't seen too much of it.
By the way, real fast, I did that game last year against Marathon, and I mean, it was such a fantastic game. I imagine that for you as a coach, knowing that you're facing, as you said, a really, really good Marathon team, probably one of the best teams that we've seen in this area in quite a while, for you, for your coaches, for your team, to execute the way you did, to give yourself a chance to win, that had to have been as disappointing as it is to lose a tight one. At the same time, boy, you guys really did execute exceptionally well. What was your overall take when you stepped away from that game? Because obviously you want to win that game, but boy, again, as you said, in comparison to the previous 2 meetings, you really did a lot of good things.
I thought our kids executed our game plan about as well as they could have. You give their kids credit. A couple of their kids who maybe weren't stepping up before that hit a couple of big threes. And it's tough when you're trying to defend a kid like Warren, and you have another kid who's ended up being an all-star in the summer too in Underwood, and just kind of hoping he doesn't make baskets. Sometimes you play the odds, and the odds you lose. That's why they call it gambling, I guess. And we gambled a little bit, and darn near pulled it out.
Coach, you mentioned the assistants all being before how valuable it is, I guess, in the way you said it. It's good to have good assistants around. And a couple times I was always focused on the scoreboard for you guys, but every now and then just looking and trying to take things in as I'm scorekeeping that game and just seeing everybody, function in their own role, knowing what to do, adding their own little piece. I just think good assistants are so valuable, and sometimes it's hard to find those guys because people just can't put that time in their daily lives or their schedule. So I could see you got a lot of great assistants, and it's great that they're in-house is really cool. Getting back to the family aspect, though, your son's there. How neat is that to have your son around to be part of that coaching staff?
Well, he always was kind of a coach, and I'm sure he's not listening tonight, but I'll admit he's smarter than I am. So, having him, he's really connected with a lot of these younger guys, and he's really been excellent in just he knows how to teach shooting, because that's as a coach's kid, that's all you heard about growing up, and we worked on it. And he's second all-time leading three-pointers to his younger brother who beat him out last year. But they know what it takes, and I think that's really helped our shooting. We're shooting almost 40% as a team from three-point range, which that's the highest we've ever had, and it's just outstanding for a high school team. But the family aspect, it was really neat last year with Cade being a senior and Cooper helping out. But he fills another important role, a sounding board for me, who's not afraid to speak up. And they're all good. They all fill their roles extremely well. But he's one of those. He knows he can suggest something, and I may agree with it. I might shoot it down. It's just it's a comforting feeling, and I really feel at ease, especially the last couple of years with our staff, just because, like you said. Good assistants are hard to find, and I've got 4 really good ones.
And then looking at Friday, you're going over to Amherst. Another team that you guys challenge yourselves in your non-conference game. You like to play out of the area. I think you guys play them every year, correct or no?
The last few years we've played them, yes.
So what do you expect? What do you expect to see out of them on Friday? Is what I'm asking when you go over there.
Well, I was talking with the kids tonight at practice. We had a short practice tonight because we had some sickness, and a lot of guys played big minutes last night. But I said we went over a little bit of stuff again for them, and they're physical. They're going to try to grind you down on offense. Bondwell, number 1 ranked team in the state, they had them 20-20 at halftime, and then Bondwell kind of imposed their will on them, and Bondwell's the real deal. It's one of those deals again. Our margin of error isn't very big. We've got to play well to beat teams, and so I expect a good game over there, especially if they play the way they did against Bondwell. That's going to be a tough non-conference game.
And we'll go back 17 years. You've been doing. I mean, to do this and be at the helm there. You keep coming back for more. Why do you love this, or why do you enjoy this? Whatever word you want to use to fill that void.
I really look forward to organizing stuff, planning stuff. That's probably when I know I'll be done, is when I kind of dread putting together like our summer schedule and getting the jerseys ready and all that kind of little stuff that people don't really think about. I think that's probably when I know I'll be done, is when that stuff becomes more of a chore than really looking forward to it. And I love being around the kids. I enjoy seeing them improve. We were just talking today. I've got a sophomore who he's really had to work on his ball handling, and it's really starting to show now. And those little types of things just kind of keep that fire going. And once that stuff isn't as important, it's probably a good time to step aside. But as of right now, it's just really fun being around the kids, and I'm still a competitive guy, so. Can't go out there and play anymore, so I might as well coach.
I got to ask one more question. We've seen in your bracket some interesting seedings over the years since the computer took over. Do you trust that the computer's going to get it right?
Not completely, no. I wasn't necessarily in favor of the computer seeding system just because it didn't seem to take the head-to-head into effect, which I think coaches weighed pretty heavily. And we didn't. Our regional meetings were never really contentious. There were always some disappointed people. Maybe a few people would get upset here and there, but it was never very contentious. Where I've heard some other areas really had some problems with that they really had some issues with coaches really getting after each other, and so I guess it's for the greater good. But a few years ago, I think it was Marathon beat Stratford twice, and Stratford ended up being seated ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we had a lot of conversations about that in our conference, but you just hope you get a high enough seed where you host a couple games, and then you just got to play who's in front of you. But not super confident in it, but there's nothing we can do about it, so I usually don't spend too much time worrying about it.
Anything else, Jeff?
Yeah, last thing, Coach. We all, as coaches, you want control of your schedule as best you can with non-conference, and obviously conference gets built in, but those non-conference selections. I got to ask you, I saw you guys had a little bit, the way you set up your holiday tournament where there was a little bit of a day in there. I know it might have been off of the weekend, but was that intentional? Is there a reason behind that?
No.
Because most teams go back-to-back.
Yeah, that's how we always did it, but we lost the team, and we couldn't find anybody. So we had to be creative. And so my AD and the other coaches kind of created a new schedule so we could still get 2 games in. And with Christmas being that Wednesday, nobody wanted to play Thursday, so we ended up going Friday, Saturday with Wyowega, and then we ended up playing Neillsville on Monday. So just kind of a creative way to get a couple games over break. So many teams have tournaments now that it's hard to find teams to commit to that and keep coming to it. So, and actually our tournament's coming to an end. We're going to be in the Century Classic next year. So we'll see if that we can get something like that going again.
And one more quickie, because I was talking to another coach recently who thinks that, we've added more games. It used to be 20 games, then 22 games, 24 games, and that it really is, it's almost hard to have balance with your teams now because there's so many games. Do you think we're at the right number of games? Do you think we have too many games? Do you think that we could have more games? What's your thought on that?
I think probably right now it's about right. I just got a text from a former player who's coaching at another high school as an assistant, and he asked how much film we watch, and I said it's hard to give up court time to watch film now with so many games that we have. I just think that court time is so valuable with the gyms being in high demand with the youth and the other teams that need to use it and things like that. So I wouldn't really want any more added. I think our schedule is pretty solid. There are some teams that do a lot of back-to-backs. I'm not really in favor of that. Maybe once or twice to get ready for the tournament. But I think the number of games is pretty solid the way it is right now.
Chad Weinfurter, head basketball coach for the Auburndale boys. Coach, thanks again for your time. Congrats on the great start. Best of luck for the rest of the season.
Well, thanks for having me again.
We're going to take a quick time out and come right back here on 98.9 WXCO.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
Big High School Sports Show, 98.9 WXCO. Thanks to Chad Weinfurter joining us. And we'll have Talon Jershely from Mosinee as our student-athlete guest coming up at 7:06. But are you surprised Auburndale's top of that conference right now?
Nothing surprises me. We've been in there. They're in a coveted spot. I would have loved to have some of our teams in it. It's hard to be up there and hard to hold it and hard to keep your team in that spot because you get a big target on your back. Teams are gunning for you every night. And so I'm not surprised. I think after watching them last night in person, you can see why they have the style that they play and the discipline that they have really caters it into being it's successful. They execute their stuff and they do it well, and they do it together as a team, and all those are great qualities and a big deal. And I think that Coach Weinfurter and his program and his team are doing a great job, and I think we talked about it with the graduation in that conference. What's the shakeup going to be? And he mentioned it. There's some stronger senior classes on the Stratford Auburndale side, so that sometimes can play out. That's those kids' time, and they only have so much left. Where your younger classes always don't have that moment of desperation because they're not going to lose out to graduation.
And also about that conference, 17 years. I mean, it's hard to believe, 17 years.
Yeah.
I mean, remember Coach Anderson, and you have Kurt Schmidt at Stratford. You have Adam Jacobson at Marathon. I mean, that's one of the keys for that conference, isn't it? The coaching.
Yeah. I was trying to explain this to my son when we were leaving some of the games, and he was asking about some of the teams and the personnel and the coaches. And I said, Matthew, last time all those guys were there, and they're still there. And that's just neat to see, because we talk about more of lifetime coaches holding true to their school, not jumping around or leaving early. And it's nice to see that longevity, because I think that still gives an element of authenticity and specialness to the bad word there, but the what makes this game special. It's still there, and there's prideful moments in that.
Well, let's start a little bit here in the last few minutes with the girls, Wisconsin Valley Conference girls. Battle at the top, Stevens Point and Marshfield Spash, 7-0 in conference. Marshfield 7-1. West 4-4. Rapids 3-4, along with DCE. Merrill 1-6, and Wausau East 0-6. You have Marshfield, who's struggled in non-conference. Now they're over 500 finally. They were pretty down under 500, but they beat Rapids Friday and Everest last night. Stevens Point beat Wausau West last night. Obviously, those are the two teams right now.
Right, you could tell by the records and see what they have as their overall marks in those conferences, and the consistency they're getting in the wins. With they're constantly winning in their conference. So at a 7-1 and 7-0 mark for those two teams is why they're playing solid. And I think you're exactly right on Marshfield. They've started just kind of creeping back in it. They're evening that record out, showing that they can on those given nights just keep consistently getting that W, which is what it is about in your own conference.
And that middle part of the conference is interesting too, with West, Rapids, and Everest. They've all proven they can beat each other, and I'm kind of curious to see ultimately who ends up at the top in that second battle in the middle.
Right. I think that's also something to strive for in the numbers game you're looking at. I think some of that's going to hinge on who's got who next. There is a Rapids and West matchup coming up, so there's going to be a little separation in that. It depends on if they got the heavy hitters, because I know like West will have Spash, so that can always West lost the Spash this recently, but they'll have a couple of each others where they're playing that middle.
Yeah,
of the
Friday, West and Rapids. So, GNC, Lakeland still undefeated. Mosinee second at 5-2. Rhinelander 5-3. Medford and Tomahawk 4-4. Pines and Antigo coming behind them. Lakeland continues to look very solid. Christina Womet had a 40-point effort in a non-conference win against Xavier, 73-32. Xavier had beat Mosinee just a few days earlier. You often talk about those non-conference comparisons, and that was a pretty good win for Lakeland, and 40 points for Christina Womet. This continues to rack up the numbers.
Well, and again, she outscored Xavier by herself. I mean, they only had 32, so I think Womet's just a difficult guard. She's averaging over 31 points and makes that team go, and I think some big wins for Lakeland on those two to just keep holding their spot at 8-0 in this conference.
Taylor Jersley had 30 points in the Mosinee lost to Xavier last Thursday, 63-55, and then they lost to Neilsville, 55-52. So a couple of both the boys and the girls from Mosinee playing some good non-conference.
Yeah, those are great. Not that you want to take the loss, but it's not like you're losing to bad teams. Xavier and Neilsville for the girls are good, solid teams. Mosinee still got a 10-6 mark overall, 5-2 in the conference, winning games that they need to get, and you can struggle a little bit in the non-conference. The conference ones are the ones that are going to matter.
We'll talk more girls basketball later, and coming up after our news update at the top of the hour, Taylor Jersley from Mosinee. She's coming up here on 98.9 WXCO.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
And welcome back. Hour number 2. Do you think I was going to make it through the first hour?
Taking bets? I can't say you're sounding any better, but I know you're going to make it through.
I am digging
And for the listeners out there, it's harder being in the room with you than it is probably hearing you on the air. So, anyways, but we'll make do with it. Go ahead.
He's Jeff Grass. I'm Chad Holmes. Our student-athlete guest for this week, Talon Jershely, junior from Mosinee. Talon, apologies for the voice, but thank you for coming in.
You're okay. Thanks for inviting me.
First of all, you're a three-sport athlete, volleyball, basketball, softball. How busy are you? I mean, because it just seems like there would be a lot on your plate in addition to being a student, in addition to having friends and family. What's your life like with being a three-sport athlete?
I mean, definitely don't got much free time, but that's the way I like it. I'm working out all the time, doing all these sports practices, but that's how I like it. So,
do you have a, and no coaches can judge you, and we know, we're talking off air, and we'll talk later about it, colleges and what you pick. Do you have a favorite sport? Does one stand out more than the other?
Honestly,
or is it just what's in season?
It's just whatever season it is. That's what I like doing.
And how big a deal is it? How do they feed off each other? Because I can't imagine, like when Chad alluded to that, to the busyness. It's just, because it's nonstop. You're training constantly for different sports, different motions, different positions, and you're pulled with all the expectations of what teams and coaches want, as well as much as what you want to work on as your own game in the off season. Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel that it's really difficult to balance all that, or is it something that just comes natural to you to do?
I mean, at times it gets obviously, like we were talking, busy, but like I'm lucky I have trainers that during softball season, he gives me softball lifts that'll focus more on like throwing, and during basketball, he gives me more like in-season lifts to do. So it's really nice having people there to like guide me through it, I guess, and just help me with it all.
And do you ever look at those sports feeding into each other at all? I mean, one helps you, we used to tell the basketball kids to go out for baseball if they couldn't catch, because they got to catch basketball. So do you find that those feed into each other pretty nicely the way you like the three sports that you play?
For sure. Not only like physicality too, just like mentally too, just the competitiveness of all three sports. It's just, you're in pressured situations in some sports, so then the next sport, you've been there before and you can do it.
Let's talk a little bit about the in-season right now. We'll talk about your other sports as well. But right now, basketball, and every time I look up, you're putting up great numbers for Mosinee. You gave some good battle against Lakeland.
Yeah.
Have not quite got over that hump. Had a 30-point effort I saw against Xavier just last week. How would you rate, number one, your basketball season and your team's season up to this point, with obviously a lot still to come?
Yeah, I mean, I think we started off the season really good, beating Shawano. We started off really good, and then we hit a little hump where we weren't on our best playing streaks, but we were starting to overcome it. We're just getting so many close games where they could really go either way, and we just got to get over that hump to just start beating these teams instead of losing by 3, by 2, and just... We're getting there.
Well, I imagine that is part of experience because, again, as I said before, your sister, not senior, still growing, probably in learning as you continue. Is it just a matter of experience, or is there something else that you're looking at that would be able to get you over the hump?
I think we just keep working hard in practices. We're there every day, just giving it everything we got, and we got a really good group of girls who just come to the gym ready to work, and I think we're all very competitive too, so that helps. So we got a couple good leaders that just lead us through everything, and yeah.
Who are your leaders, by the way? Who do you look as the leaders on your team right now?
Well, I'm a captain, and then we got one other senior that's a captain, but there's definitely some younger girls who are stepping up and knowing that they can lead too. It's not just a grade thing, like they can lead too. So.
And who is that senior captain?
Britt Fitzgerald.
Always want to get that name out there.
And, I think it's, I don't know, sometimes looking back on it, how when I went to school, did these captains take it serious enough, or were they truly leaders? I mean, I think that's a big thing to be selected by your team to take that role on, and you can have quiet leaders as much as you can have impactful verbal leaders. For you yourself, how important is that role, and what do you try to do to emphasize that to your teammates, that whether it's your on-court leadership or side conversations you have or what you want to bring to practice? I guess how important is that role to you?
I mean, it's super cool when people look to me for things. I mean, I try to do my best, lead by example, and hold myself to the same standards I'm holding my whole team to. So they all seem to like listen and everything pretty well. So
Do you carry that into every other sport too? Is
Yeah.
that a goal here? Is you try to be the leader as much as you can?
Mhm.
Again, we're talking to Taylin Jershely from Mosinee Junior for the Mosinee High School girls basketball team. Also plays volleyball and softball here on 98.9 WXCO. You are averaging about a little under 18 points per game so far this season. Well, how would you describe your game? What is the strength of your game? What are the areas you're still trying to strive for? How would you describe yourself on the hardwood?
I mean, I'm a shooter. I like to shoot.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
He was a shooter too.
Yeah. No, but my teammates do a really good job of driving and kicking it to me too, so then I can get those open looks. Because now as we're getting deeper into the season, people know I like to shoot, so then they're trying to guard me tighter and stuff. So it's nice having people being able to create for me to help me get those open shots.
How with just the makeup of the conference a little bit, you got some teams hanging at the top. Do you have a favorite opponent that you like to play now that you've done this for a lot? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you've been playing since you're a freshman,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So you've seen some of these teams, seen some of these girls, and
Yeah.
it's old habit by now as a junior. Is there a certain opponent that you guys really, as a group, kind of get up for just because of the battles and the rivalries? Because I know there are some.
Yeah.
There's more than one maybe in that conference.
Yeah.
There's some heated battles. So what do you
Yeah,
think?
for sure. Definitely Lakeland is definitely top one. We like to circle on our calendar, I guess. We're always up for that challenge, and I think this year was the first year we really believed we can do it, and I think it showed, but we fell short twice, but I mean Medford's up there too. We like playing them, Rhinelander.
A lot
Yeah.
of the top teams.
Yeah.
And we were talking off air a little bit about playing Lakeland, and you might get them a third time in the playoffs. With analyzing your team a little bit, you've seen them 2 times on the go around. What does your team have to do in that third game to knock them off? Because on their end too, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Also, it's not an easy thing. So what do you think you guys would have to do to knock them off if you got them in a head-to-head matchup in the playoffs down the road?
Yeah, I think offensively, our shots, not to be say excuses or whatever, but I don't think we've played our best offensively when we've played them. So, I mean, part of that is their defense. They play really good defense too. So, obviously, it's not just we had a bad game. But I think we'll get our shots start to fall. And our defense, I think if we keep our defense the same, our defense is good against them. So.
One of the interesting aspects of those 2 games, and they were both 3-point games, you held them under 50 both times. And I mean, you look at Christina Wilmette's numbers. I mean, she sometimes gets close to that amount on her own.
Yeah.
What's been the key for you to keep a very experienced, talented team under 50 points twice?
Yeah, we just really focused on practices. We really focused on the defensive side of it. We knew she's gonna get her baskets. That's how she is.
She's so tall.
Yeah, we knew that, so we can't get down after she scores. She's gonna make 30-foot threes. That's how it goes. But we just gotta bounce right back, and we just gotta help hold her to her. I guess I don't even know how to say it, but
keep her in check.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
Don't let her explode.
Yeah,
yeah. We'll talk more basketball. Let's talk some softball, because that's, I think, for lack of a better term, that's the one that you're gonna move on and play at the next level. Your team made it to the state tournament a year ago. What was it like to play at state?
It was awesome. It was really cool, especially with the group of girls we had too. That made it even more special. We all were there to compete. We knew what we were there for. It was a really awesome experience.
What position do you play for folks who haven't seen you?
I'm a shortstop.
Yep. Your offensive numbers were terrific as well a year ago. When did you start? I imagine a lot of folks here in central Wisconsin know the name and the baseball aspect of it. Could you, for those folks who aren't familiar with your family, can you talk about the family connections to some pretty significant jobs in the baseball world?
Yeah. I mean, my grandpa was third base coach of the Kansas City Royals. So when they went to the World Series, and then when they won the World Series, we were actually at those games. So that was cool. It just, from a young age, when you're there, it just makes you want to play too. So that was, and then now my uncle is the third base coach for the Chicago White Sox. So.
was going to say, don't see too many White Sox jerseys,
Yeah.
but it's good to be on the bottom floor when they rise up, right?
Yeah.
Well, and along those lines, we've had Keegan on the show, and he talked a little bit about his sports adventure and what he enjoyed about high school sports. For you, having your family involved, I think it's neat to have an older sibling go through some things. You get to tag along, you get to absorb it, you get to see the mistakes they make or the good things they do, and you can learn from it. And so I think it's a big deal to have that family dynamic. How important has that been to you? Maybe all the extra higher level sports thing you've seen, as well as seeing the journey of some of your family members and now getting to live it out on your own. How important of an influence has that been, or hasn't it?
Yeah, for sure it has been. I mean, not only watching him, but like my brother's helped me so much with everything, and he obviously, like you said, he was through it all. So when I was like questioning something or anything, like he knew because he's been there, and so it's awesome to have him there to just help guide me.
When I was going to follow that up, because I love the family dynamics that can pop up in sports, whether coaches have their kids playing or siblings are on the same team. I think it's cool. Your younger sister's a freshman, right? Do you ever pay it forward, take her under your wing, or maybe you have that other relationship where you're always yelling at each other, but we'll get along on the court. We're going to take care of business. How's it been having your sister around?
Oh, it's awesome. I love it. We work so hard together. Off season, we're in the gym shooting, we're lifting together, we're playing catch together, we're doing everything together. So, I mean, that just helps us on the court, on the field too, just like with knowing each other, and it just helps so much. And we trust each other because we know how hard we work, and we're always going to be there for each other. So
to show your level of success on the softball diamond, you've already made a decision on where you're going to continue your academic and your softball careers. Where's that going to be?
I'm going to Northwestern University.
Big Ten Conference, wonderful academic institution as well. Why Northwestern?
Honestly, I went there on my visit, and it was awesome. Just the people, the coaches. It just felt like such a family, and I don't know. Their campus, I just loved it. But it was more about the people. Like it was just, you went there, and I just knew. Like I knew that's where I wanted to go. So.
And I know you're only a junior, so a lot of time to think about it, can be undecided. Do you have any classes that you take right now, or insight to when you start your major, what you want to do already, or is that still well down the road, undecided because it's pretty far yet?
Yeah. I don't really know what I want to do yet.
Do you have a favorite high school class that you enjoy right now?
I like math, but.
Well, of course, between your scoring and your batting average and your fielding percentage, you got to be good at math, right? Again, we're talking to Taylor Jershely from Mosinee here on 98.9 WXCO. Let's step away because obviously you are so busy with athletics. When you do have a little bit of free time, what do you like to do?
I just like to hang out with family. We go to my grandma and grandpa's cottage sometimes in the summer, and basically everything with family. I hang out with friends a couple times, but I just like to hang out with my family.
We haven't even mentioned volleyball. Is that just something because you love being involved? Because obviously we've seen you on the softball diamond, outstanding. We've seen you on the basketball court, outstanding. I have to admit, I'm not too familiar with the volleyball. How does volleyball fit into your athletics?
Honestly, I ran cross country my whole life. Freshman year, I ran cross country, and then I had a little incident where I passed out twice. So I was it wasn't my top sport. Didn't want to ruin my other sports or risk doing anything.
Right?
Yes. So I was like, why not try volleyball? So I mean, it's fun. I like being competitive, obviously. So it's definitely up there. Yeah.
You sound like you wouldn't know what to do if you weren't involved in a sport.
Yeah.
Do all I know, a big thing about high school athletics, as much as it is in the competitive atmosphere of it and what teams want to accomplish and the conference champions, getting down to state, all that stuff you want to do. I think it's so much so also the lifelong friendships you make and being around the people on your team. Do you have a lot of girls that do that where they're crossing, or the volleyball, the basketball, the softball, they're all with you all the time, which makes a pretty big unbreakable bond? Or is there your volleyball group and your basketball group and your softball group, or is it how's the dynamics of that as you go through your three sports throughout the season?
Volleyball and basketball are a lot of the same girls, so especially with them being back to back, we're all super close already, and it helps us definitely going from one season to the next, like staying in that little core group. But softball, there's not as many, but there's a couple, so it's nice. It helps us because we all know. I mean, we know how we play, and we know how we play on the volleyball court. We know how we play on the basketball court. So I think it just builds those connections and helps us play well with each other.
I want to ask outside high school sports, because nowadays we see a lot of club sports. Are you involved in these sports outside of your high school seasons? And could maybe give a little peek in terms of the off seasons, what you do, because obviously when you're at the level you are for softball especially, there's a lot outside the high school season itself. Could you give a little peek into what it's like outside the seasons?
Yeah, in the summer I play for JBA Clutch for softball, travel ball. And then I did play some AAU. It's hard to balance them because it's like we play softball almost every weekend. So it's like, and then basketball, I would just go the weekends I could. But, I mean, this summer, knowing I wanted to get recruited for softball, I made softball like my priority for weekends and stuff. But
and I know there's a lot of travel involved. Where are some of the places you've been able to travel to for some of these summer tournaments?
Yeah, we went to Colorado this past year. We go to Illinois, Indiana, just those places.
Get around.
Yeah.
And going back to your choice of Northwestern as a softball program and an academic institution, are they good when they're recruiting you at, like, are you gonna, obviously you must love shortstop and that's the position you play, and are you gonna get to continue in that spot? Do you have to tweet? Do you have to come in at another spot and get back to that spot, or do you know where you would stand at all, or is there
It honestly just depends. Yeah, it just depends on who they have at the time. But yeah, I went in. I got recruited as an infielder. So
okay. And do you look ahead? I know you check it out and you get a vibe when you do your college. You get a vibe for it, but you check records. Do you look at how they've done over there?
Yeah.
So how is Northwestern softball? I don't have any idea.
Yeah, they've
so I guess that's why I'm asking.
been. They're 3-time Big Ten champs,
Okay.
so that's impressive. Yeah.
It's amazing. That's sort of. I love watching softball. I love when it's happening because I'm able to broadcast, and I like watching like when the College World Series comes around. It's amazing how good those girls are.
Yeah.
How do you look at your game? What do you have to do between now and when you go to campus at Northwestern to be ready? Because, boy, I mean, again, when anybody watches the College World Series, sees the incredible level. What are you looking at in terms of improving your game to be ready to go when you get to Northwestern?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I just keep getting stronger, keep getting quicker, just focus on those things, and I think all the other skill work, I mean, I'm going to be working on my swing, working on my hands, working on everything. So I think just knowing like I'm going to be working on all that stuff helps prepare me for that.
And I guess looking forward to the end of the basketball season here, which will come up quicker than anybody wants. It just happens. But what do you, in looking at like just how your team stands right now, what's something that, hey, we're doing a solid job at this, I really like this, this is good about our team, kind of makes us dangerous, and then is there something else that you guys have to improve on to get as deep as you want to go in the short time that's left? So I guess one thing that you think is really strong with this team right now, and one thing you want to improve on yet in the short time that till the end of the season.
Yeah, I think we're headed towards a good spot for us right now. We're starting to play. We're playing these better teams, but we're starting to play better as a whole. I think at the beginning we had a really good run, and then we fell apart, I think, a little bit. But I think we started to play not like selfish, but not just as a team as good as we can. But I think we're definitely playing as a team a lot better now, and I think we're on the rise to beat some of these good teams. So.
And you got Medford on Friday. Okay, what are you going to see out of them, and what style of play are they going to play against you, from what you remember?
Well, just from past years, I know they're always better the second time we play them. They're always, I don't know if they're more prepared, I don't know, but they're always better the second time. So we can't go in thinking, oh, we beat them already. Like, we treat every competitor like we're gonna lose. Like, we just got to be top notch, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. They kind of switched up from a man to a zone, so I guess we'll see.
And you got to go over there. Is there a place in the conference you don't like to play at all? Like, it's just, I remember when I played or when I coached, it's like, this is, student crowd's going to be on us for the first mistake we made. This is so loud, you can't vote.
Or half the lights are off.
Yeah, or something goofy, or you hate the locker room, whatever it might be. Is there a place that, I'm just asking, I guess it's Medford, but is there a place that you not crazy about playing, or you guys don't think about that anymore?
I don't really think about
Just
that.
go play the game.
Not really.
Fair enough.
For me at least. I don't know.
Anything else?
No, I mean, you can go to the...
Well, to me, obviously you got a lot of time left in your high school career. We usually ask this to seniors, but we're going to ask it to you because you have a sibling who you're playing with, a freshman. Because we usually ask for somebody who is a freshman in your program, whether it's softball or basketball, based on what you've learned over the last couple of years, because you've obviously had an opportunity to play at the varsity level as a freshman. What piece of advice do you give somebody like your sister as a freshman as they start their journey through varsity athletics?
Yeah. I mean, I guess just sacrificing some things that some people don't want to sacrifice. Like, we know what we want to get, the level we want to get to. So I think just giving it everything you got and knowing that you're going to get rewarded in the end, and living just with no regrets. Like, you don't want to regret once you're done. So just playing with no regrets.
Fantastic.
And I do have one more.
Go for it.
One of the things we always stress too, Chad and I talk about, is just how important high school athletics is, just the whole picture of it. So for you, you're very busy, you're involved in 3 sports. It gives you a great broad perspective, I think, on the important. Why are high school athletics important to you, or why is your time being on these high school teams a big deal?
I mean, I've talked about competitiveness a lot, but I think competitiveness, just like in life, that's just a good trait to have. Like, when something doesn't go your way, how are you going to respond? Are you going to sit there and pout, or are you going to step up and figure it out? So I think that's one big thing.
Life lessons, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
Taylor Jershely, again, congrats on all the success you've had.
Thank you.
And I'm guessing we may get you back next year. I
Perfect.
hope.
Sounds good.
But best of luck the rest of the winter. Best of luck in the spring as well.
Thank you.
We're going to take a time out and come right back here on 98.9 WXCO.
Finalists are announced for the WBCA Mr. Basketball Award, plus other hoops notes. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells. More high school sports news after this. You may have heard of Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells, one of the country's premier destinations for youth sports and events, but did you know that Just a Game does so much more? Just a Game also delivers end-to-end apparel, equipment, and event solutions with their state-of-the-art screen printing and embroidery facility that can help with branding for your team and business items, including uniforms, apparel, and more. Just a Game also offers digital services that include a cashless digital platform and event live streaming. Just a Game has also added a second brand new facility in Reedsburg. Find more information at justagame.com. The Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association has announced its 6 finalists for the prestigious Mr. Basketball Award. This year's top group includes Amari Allen of Ashwaubenon, Jamarian Bateman of Milwaukee Academy of Science, Gavin Gores of Cumberland, Zach Kinziger of De Pere, Xavion Mitchell of Oshkosh North, and Aaron Womack of Dominican. The winner of the Mr. Basketball Award will be announced at the state tournament, and the finalists for the Ms. Basketball Award will be released later this week. Going back to last week, there were some big performances around the state. In a rematch of last year's Division II state title game, Wisconsin Lutheran downed Pewaukee 71-53 in a boys hoops game Thursday night. On Friday, Drew Doust of Southern Door moved into 4th place on the state's all-time scoring list with 40 points to go along with 10 rebounds, 8 assists, and 5 steals in a win over Oconto. The Southwestern boys team continued its strong recent play, defeating a pair of ranked Division V teams. First, it was a 67-58 win over 9th-ranked Abundant Life at Fiserv Forum on Thursday, before another impressive non-conference showing on Saturday with a game at 2nd-ranked and previously undefeated North Crawford. In that one, Aiden Kelleher scored a game-high 18 points to lift Southwestern to an exciting 55-53 victory. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction, 98.9 WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, and very impressive. And you love to see when our area student athletes get that opportunity to, especially go to Division I. And already as a junior, obviously, she had some massive numbers last year on the softball diamond, and a very nice young lady.
Right. She did an awesome job. Again, she paints the insight of what she's going through as a student athlete, gives us some insights on her team from the leadership perspective of being a captain. And I always find this interesting when our student athletes are deciding where to go to college or they're working on it. You can really see in their faces when it's done or when they're still thinking about it, that angst, that stressfulness. Yep. You don't think, you think, oh, they got a Division I scholarship grade. But to get to that point, sometimes there's a lot of pressure on these athletes. And I think that's a good courageous moment for them, that they fight through it and they get what they want out of it.
Let's continue girls basketball. We went through the Valley and the GNC. Merowith South, Assumption 10-0, 14-1 overall. Auburndale 9-2, 15-2 overall. Stratford 8-2, 12-4 overall. Marathon 7-3, 13-3 overall. Edgar 3-8, 7-12 overall. Newman 2-9, 3-12 overall. There were some conference games, some conference crossovers. We saw that the South swept the North on Friday. You had Assumption winning conference games over Edgar 65-19, and Marathon, a game that I had with a much better voice on Monday, 75-47. And then they had a non-conference game. They went up to Rhinelander and beat the Hodags last night as well. So Assumption, great experience, great talent, and pretty much where we expected them to be.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing in the conference what you've seen them do all year long, is taking ownership, holding on to that first place spot. They've got a 14-1 overall mark, but I thought that was impressive. I mean, we've seen Rhinelander a little bit what they can do in the GNC, and they got Clark as a scorer, and for Assumption, a smaller school, to go win by 30 against Rhinelander, I think that's a fairly significant win for them last night, Tuesday. So they're doing what they can do, and they're going to continue to control this conference. I believe they're going to be conference champions when all said and done.
And again, but the conference is really good when you have 14-1, 15-2, 12-4, 13-3, and obviously, I think Marathon's turnaround this year has been very impressive. I think Coach Schneider's done a terrific job. Stratford has been right there. Auburndale's right there. Again, it's going to be very interesting when these teams get to the playoffs, because, again, like the boys, a lot of them get together in that same bracket.
Yeah. Well, and you look, what was it? There, a lot of quick games. Take Marathon. They're 13-3, 7-3 overall. They had the non-conference win against Athens on Friday, lost to Assumption, which everybody else does in that conference, and then they turned around and beat Nakusa over at Nakusa on Tuesday. That's a quick stretch of a lot of games, and for those high school teams to continue to evolve and make the adjustments and play that amount of basketball in a short amount of time and get a bulk of W's out of that, that's what you want to see. Stratford continuing. They beat Phillips, won in a non-conference game.
That's a good win.
Yep. Yeah, that was one I saw right away, because Phillips is top of the North, and not an easy team to win against. And then you had they got the non-conference win against Adams Friendship. So again, they're holding true at 12-4 overall. And Auburndale continues to hang around. They beat Newman Catholic Thursday. Got Rib Lake on Friday, and here was the more impressive one that I thought, because Assumption's lone loss is to Pacelli.
Yes,
I think Pacelli is ranked just ahead of Assumption in the rankings that came out today, and Auburndale went and beat Pacelli last night 61-54. So that's a high quality win from what I've seen out of those other scores. So again, I think you put it perfect when you started off this segment, but for the Merowith, saying the depth in this conference is pretty impressive with those overall records of the top four teams.
And it's been a struggle for Newman, but they got a couple of wins in the past week. I had a chance for 3, but then good win for Northland against Newman last night. But Newman, obviously, they lost a couple of players before the season. They lost a starter because of injury. It's just been a very short-handed team, and it's nice to see some positive reinforcement. They got the victory in the crossover against Chequamegon on Friday, and then they went on the road and won at Tri-County on Monday. So busy week, actually. They were 2-2 in the last week.
Yeah, and I think for Newman, NEWs are good. Being in that school, knowing Coach Colossius, because we work together, is just,
it's a challenge this year.
But the job he's doing, I think, he's got his girls running the system. They're playing hard. They're getting along. That's not easy to do when the wins don't come come as easily. Sometimes kids have a hard time seeing the process
Yeah.
or the ability to get there, and they've had some things go up against them. Chips that have fallen where you could roll over and be done. You could say, why is this worth it? And they keep plugging along, and to do that with a positive attitude and to fight to continue to get better, I think it says something about the team and also about the leadership from the coach. So I'm happy to see them get those couple W's and hopefully a couple more where they get these in spurts and they continue to try to work and improve as a team, and hopefully can gel a couple things when they get a couple players back from injury too.
And generally, sometimes the best coaching jobs are not done the years you go 24-0.
No, and nor are the best connections made. Sometimes it's just those moments where you have to fight through the hardest adversity that it makes you stronger, makes the better connections, and maybe in some instances has some more memories created out of it.
Merriwood North Phillips 7-3 leads the way, 12-4 overall. Rib Lake 6-5, Prentice 5-5, Abbotsford 4-7, Athens 2-9, Shawamigan 0-10. Again, Phillips continues to be the top team in that league. Rib Lake is still there. They had a nice win against Athens Monday night. Also, that last night, Abbotsford beating Prentice was a little surprising to me. That's, again, I'd like to see once in a while those surprises.
Right.
And that was a surprise.
Yeah,
good for Abbotsford.
Because Abby's Abby's sitting in the bottom.
They're 4-11 overall,
yeah,
but they beat Prentice, who has a winning record.
Right.
I thought that was the one that kind of jumped out to me.
And I think those are good wins along the way. Stuff teams can build off of. Stuff can try to help you get more ready for the playoffs, to maybe build some confidence out, because teams can change their course a little bit based on how well they're doing or what they can pick up as the season goes on. So good for Abby for that win. But in the driver's seat in that conference, definitely Phillips, even with the loss at Stratford, is still going to control that North, I think. I think that some teams are going to have a hard time beating them. I know Rib Lake is right there, but we'll see how they do. Phillips is on the top of that conference. They have some pretty good prolific scoring off that team.
CWC East still undefeated as Whitburn. You've been gone a couple weeks here, and
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. They're 9-0 overall, 9-0 in the conference, 15-0 overall. Bonduel right there at 9-1 in the conference, 15-4. Then a dip. Wyowega is 5-5 in conference. Amherst 4-5. Menominee Nation 4-6. Iola and Shiocton 3-7. Manawa 2-8. Whitburn Thursday beat Menominee Nation 63-45. Salveson and Granquist every time. Rory Salveson 24. Malena Granquist 22. Then on Tuesday, Whitburn 62, Wyowega 29, Salveson 21, Malena Granquist and Harper Rogowski 14. Bonduel took care of their games, winning over Iola and Menominee Nation. But those two, they got another game coming up.
Yep, and I'm always impressed with Wittenberg, how those two that when we mention Granquist and Sal, or we look at them on paper, they just piggyback off each. They offset each other in scoring average by 2, but then every now and then you see it's just got to be a tough guard. At that point when you see those numbers, so much so sometimes teams, you have to have one alpha dog out there, somebody that stands out a little more, and then you have your Jordan Pippen type thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
It works. And it's hard to sometimes trade those spots off. And these girls, a credit to their team, a credit to the coaching staff, and a credit to those young ladies, is they seem to really feed off that really well, where they're still getting the W's, they're unfinished, and somebody's outscoring somebody by 2. And I know it's not there's anything in the way of that, but I think it's impressive and it makes you dangerous. And I'm looking for, I know we always talk about the game, but we could say it now. They have Pacelli on Monday.
Yes.
And so I think that's going to be a fun one to watch to see what that score is.
CWC North, Gresham 4-1, Marion Tigerton 3-2, Northland 1-2, Boulder 0-3, Northland 6-6 overall. Good week for Northland. They beat Gresham 45-42 in league Thursday, Sir Augustus 9, and then they always enjoy beating Newman, I think, and because over the years they've had some.
It was a rivalry from out the conference.
I know, and usually it would be a tough matchup, but they last night beat Newman 44-29, so good for Northland.
Yeah, a couple of wins for them, and you like to see the ones where they step out of the conference if they're able to get those, because sometimes those are a little tougher to come by. But sitting at a 6-6 record with a couple of those wins over the last few days.
Need to touch on hockey, and I got to carry the load here.
Yep, I will chime in if I think I know something.
Wisconsin Valley Conference, Stevens Point still undefeated, 7-0, 19 15-0 overall. They, for the first time, nearly let one get away last night. They went to a team that's ranked in the top 5 in the state, Neenah, Hortonville, Menasha. Neenah took a 2-0 lead after one. Spash came back, led 3-2. Neenah scored in the final minute to force overtime, but then Spash won it 5-4 in OT. And that came, after Spash had beat the number 2 ranked team in the state Friday, 5-0 Brookfield. And they beat Wausau West, snapping the Warriors' win streak last Thursday, 7-1. So Stevens Point still doing it, 7-0. Everest 6-2 in the conference. West 5-2. Rapids 3-4. EMU 1-7. Marshfield 0-7. Stevens Point plays at DC Everest tomorrow night, so obviously a great opportunity for the Evergreens. Wausau West has a couple of non-conference games, significant because they're both sectional games. Tomorrow night at Eau Claire North, and then at New Richmond, who is ranked number 6 in the state, Saturday. So again, that's on the boys' side. Mosinee, second place in the Great Northern, 5-1, 11-8-1 overall, behind only Tomahawk. Tomahawk, number 1 in the state in Division 2, 7-0 in the conference, 15-3 overall. And the Great Northern Conference has their hockey tournament that gets underway next week. And on Thursday, in girls hockey, last night, I should say Tuesday, the Storm beat Wisconsin Valley Union 7-1. Storm now 17-3 overall at Metrolinx on Saturday. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I'm always impressed with the way some of these teams that are up in the top part of their conference, like Spash West for the boys' side, they challenge themselves and the rivalries and the teams that they're taking on and they're beating when they're ranked or they're coming close. That non-conference schedule is always impressive what I see out of those two teams, and for the Storm, they keep rolling and doing a good job in all their games.
Let's look ahead. Let's start with the boys. When we look ahead, Wisconsin Valley Conference, as we've talked about, Marshfield has been consistent. 7-0, West 5-2, East 4-2, Spash 3-3, Everest 3-4, Merrill 1-6, Rapids 0-6. What are you looking forward to?
I like the East Marshfield matchup. I think that when you're talking to your players and you get to go kind of take down the team that's top in your conference or try or make the attempt to, it's fun to do. You pump it up that you're going on their floor to do it. And East has the pieces to beat them. They have high octane scoring and obviously have a great record and have had a great season so far. Marshfield's just been that team that kind of sticks up there and tries to own that spot. I think you got a lot of good athletes on the floor that night. So I think that's going to be a fun one over there on Friday. The other one, I'm curious to see as Everest gets a little healthier with each step they take. They host Spash on Friday. And I'm not saying you go win that game, but I'm thinking the steps to keep staying competitive and staying close and getting everybody on the floor together. A win would go really well with the kind of the losses they've taken, but I still think good things could come out of that game, especially getting Prevey back and seeing how he continues to grow with his teammates and make that adjustment. And I also like that Everest is stepping on the conference, and on Tuesday, they're going to have Mosinee. I love these teams that battle across from that. And just quickly checking anything else. Those are probably the major ones that I see. Anything on your end that you're looking forward to?
No, I think I agree with those games. That East Marshfield game, Marshfield came out in the first half of the first meeting and really took it to East. Can East come out stronger, put some pressure on Marshfield? I think important.
And I think one other one I missed was next Tuesday, West welcomes in Rhinelander, and it's always kind of fun when you get the Family Feud going, and the both the Lemons get to clash a little bit on the court. I gotta imagine that's a lot of fun for the two of them.
Great Northern Conference, and I imagine that Medford-Mosinee game is the one that stands out right to begin with, because Medford surprisingly in first place, but Mosinee very talented, so Mosinee hosting Medford.
Yep, and as any poster that needs to go up in the locker room is there's just a difference of one loss in that column. So and Medford's got to come in there, and Mosinee's going to be ready. It's not that Mosinee hasn't been challenged in the last couple games. They did beat a good Marathon team, lost to a good Kaukauna team, and beat a good Xavier team on the road. So I think those were all good things with coming in there. They're definitely getting scoring out of Reinke and Stoffel. So I think that's going to be a battle, and it has been the whole time. Every time Medford and Mosinee play each other, it becomes a war no matter kind of where they're standing. Now it just means a little vie for shake things up in the conference again.
Only loss that Medford has in the conference came to Mosinee back on December 13th, 68-57. Other than that, they've been able to win, including a big road win at Rhinelander. Again, they've done the job, and it's been again, some of their non-conference games have been just so ugly.
Right. You often wonder about that, but
60-37 at Onalaska.
Right, and you often wonder about that. At the end of the day, those non-conference games, they're good. There can be good things that come out of those wins if you win for seeding. But you jump back in your conference, and if you can own that and get that conference title, I think that goes a long way for teams too.
And Pines and Rhinelander. Friday night as well. That's always, I think, obviously for Rhinelander after that loss to Antigo, and Pines still on the fringes at 4-3 in the conference.
Yeah, I think for Rhinelander's not going to want to lose any pace in there, but I think we're getting into part two. The one other thing that talking to some coaches, like even when I talked to Coach Weinfurter last night at the Newman game, there's a lot of stuff going around. Listen to your voice. There's a lot of stuff going around in terms of people's sickness, how they're feeling. There's teams that are being affected a little bit by, are their kids ready to go? Are they showing up to school that day because they're not feeling good? Can they, it's just, there's a lot of up and downs with that type of stuff. And now we also get to the point where do injuries play out when players come back? Are they dinged up from this? The rest, the relaxation, the sickness, all kind of gets in there. So I think, again, the top of this conference with these teams being one loss away from each other, Pines can add to the mix with that win. So I'm sure they're going to try everything to go pull that off at Rhinelander, where Rhinelander's got to keep them at bay if they want to stay up atop of that conference.
Merriwood South, obviously a great race at the top. We talked a lot about Auburndale, and they get a chance to avenge their only loss Tuesday.
Yeah, I like that fact. I mean, I got to imagine this time Auburndale's not going to stub their toe. So unless they have a poor shooting night, and what I've seen out of both those teams, Assumption, a little more loose in their play. They're a little bit more up and down, fly around the court, not maybe as disciplined, but not that that's not ineffective for them, where, Auburndale, more methodical, more structured, balanced in terms of what they want to do and how they want to hurt a team, both offensively and defensively. So I think it is going to, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Auburndale. They're not going to want to, they're sitting in a good spot. And Coach Weinfurter talked about that consistency, and he's going to have his team ready to go.
Edgar and Stratford and Newman and Marathon, the other Merriwood South conference matchups coming up next Tuesday. And I'm kind of curious if Edgar can give Stratford a bit of a scare. They've been playing better.
Yeah, I think that game comes down to that physicality. This is a team where they've beat each other on the football field in terms of their seasons in the fall, and you're going to want to carry that forth. And I think that's one of those games where it kind of comes out to who's going to have a better shooting night, because there's going to probably be a lot of physicality. There's going to be that amped up because of the rivalry they've had so many times in the fall. I think for Newman, that going over to Marathon, this is another step where, watching them play last night and kind of going up and down. And when they played well together and made a little comeback on Auburndale, things were clicking. But then when they struggled, things weren't together. Guys were maybe down on themselves. Heads were being hung a little bit. And I think they need a little positive pick-me-up. And to go over there and play well would mean a big deal, especially in the Marathon gym, which is never an easy place to play. And Newman, they have there's such a high amount of scoring between Fender and Piffner and stuff like that. And if those guys can just stay true to that, putting the ball in the basket, keeping the other team on the back of their heels, it can make a big difference.
As we look at Merriwood North, CWC East, CWC North, anything jump out in terms of upcoming games?
I think, with Rib Lake as a lead game over Phillips, and obviously Prentice only at 500 as the third place team. I think it's Rib Lake's conference to hold, so it could, not looking at the full schedules of every single team down the stretch here, but for Rib Lake to own that, it could come down to obviously maybe a win or two here in the Merriwood South crossover games and see if they can pull one of those off. Steal them. Yeah, that would solidify it. Otherwise, I think that that they're going to own the top of that conference. Let's see.
Whitburn has Shiocton Thursday. They have Pacelli Monday, and Wyowega Tuesday. As they again, Whitburn and Bonduel, both the boys and the girls, both doing very well.
Yeah, and for Wittenberg to stay within that, Bonduel, top team ranked in Division IV. Coach Weinfurter said that they're the real deal. We know what they are capable of doing from last year and have just continued this year. Unfortunately, Wittenberg, as good as they are, and have good if they played at 11-2 marks, 7-1 overall in that conference, doesn't have a lot of room to slip up. So they're going to get Wyowega, in my opinion, on Tuesday. Shiocton always presents a good physical test for all those teams in that conference. And Pacelli, even after the transfer to Aui, has some good players left and can give you a game. So those aren't going to be any easy tasks. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out when we talk next time on the show.
And busy week for Northern Lutheran. Sometimes you never know.
Yeah. Well, Thursday, they're sitting at second place, 4-1. Tigerton, I think, is the main competition in that conference, so they should get Bowler tomorrow night. And Friday, they're at Wild Rose, and Tuesday at White Lake. All games I think that they can win to keep pace for that final match. I think they have one more matchup with Tigerton. So that's what they're kind of looking for.
Let's look at the girls. Wisconsin Valley Conference. Rapids and West played a good one the first time around, and that's one of those battles for third place.
Yeah, and like you asked earlier on the show, it's interesting to see who will come out with West, Rapids, and DC Everest being 3, 4, and 5, or 3 and tied for 4 in that conference. I think
4 losses in conference for all, so they're basically even.
Yes, and I think that's going to be a big deal for whoever pulls that out. I can see. I just think that West has the edge on that a little bit and should be able to get that, but we'll see after that game's played.
Not really. Then they have some non-conference games coming up Tuesday. So basically Friday is the conference, and I like the non-conference where West plays at Mosinee on Saturday. So that's always nice.
Yeah, those will be good games. And I think for Everest hanging in the middle of that pack before they got to go over to Spash Friday. That's going to be a tough test, so they're probably going to slide around a little bit, and just to keep pace with that. I am interested to see on Tuesday when you talk about games, and there's that Spash at Rhinelander. I think that'll be an interesting matchup with.
I think though Rhinelander's still missing
Clark.
Clark, yep.
Because that's who too. I wanted to see the Clark-Sorbert matchup. So I guess if she's not back,
she has not been last night's game. I didn't see her name.
Well, if she's back, it'll be great. If not, it's going to be a taller task than for Spash. So otherwise, if she's back, I'd love to see it. If not, Spash will probably get that game. And for Marshfield, it looks they have East on Friday. Should get that. They'll jump into Baraboo on Tuesday, and so not a lot to keep pace. They'll stay up at the top.
An interesting game. Is where is that? Oh, I thought doesn't Antigo play East? Did I not write that down, or did I miss that one? I'm not sure.
They do. They're
because both teams have struggled.
Yes.
Again,
so they play tomorrow night.
Okay, you're right. That one again. Both teams have struggled.
Yeah.
So it turns into an opportunity.
Right. Well, and those become big games, obviously, for those two teams because. As a coach, you want your practice efforts and what you're reciprocating to the kids to pan out. And so many times, unfortunately for the kids, it's the scoreboard at the end of the day of what their measuring stick is. And sometimes so many times for people in the stands. Because there can be growth in a loss as much as there can be growth in a win. And it can build to better things in life when kids figure out how to win and lose and how to navigate all that. So, but hard time living in the moment on that sometimes. So I think, like you to your point, it's going to be a big game for those two teams because each one of them is going to want to pull that out to get that W going. Because Anago has one and East hasn't won yet, and Anago only has one win on the season. So
Great Northern, Mosinee and Medford, I guess would be the significant game.
Yeah, where I think Mosinee pulled the first one out. So I think. Yeah. I think they're going to take that game, but that's probably the biggest one there that has a little, because Mosinee doesn't want to lose any pace, and because I would slide them back by Rhinelander right now, they get to hold on to that second place spot, which will be it's going to be difficult to grab that first place spot because I don't think anybody other than Mosinee is going to beat Lakeland.
And the Salon Springs Lakeland game. Salon Springs is 12-1. They're a D5 team, so Lakeland should be able to handle them. But still, it's Lakeland facing a successful team in non-conference.
Well, we talked about Lakeland not like crushing some of their non-conference opponents like they have in the past. I mean, they've been doing okay in conference. So the fact that right now they're starting to build where they beat Medford by, about 30. They killed Xavier on what was that, Saturday?
Yep.
And they'll beat Anago on Friday. So I'm curious to see if they can continue this pattern. Are they peaking? Are they hitting their stride? I mean, you said Wilmette had 40. How often do you say that out of some of the smaller the schools up in central Wisconsin around here on the girls' side, and she's averaging over 31. So I just think I want to see if that consistency continues against a good D5 team, but in these non-conference games, so that we can say that they're ready to go and they're primed to go for that final run.
Merriwood South, Assumption, and Auburndale. I think that's probably the big one. Auburndale second, Assumption first. Game will be played in Auburndale.
And you always, we like to see these conferences get interesting. So can Auburndale give them a game? I know the first time around, I think Assumption owned them.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Auburndale, a nice win against a good Pacelli team whose Assumption's only loss. And so this meeting tomorrow, we'll see who pans out on that one.
Let's go to the Merriwood North. Anything jump out? Or
I'm looking if Phillips has anybody, and they're not. They took a lot. They lost to Crandon. That Athens game, Phillips is going to win that. So nothing that stands out on that side.
And
of the
I
conference.
do think that you mentioned earlier, Pacelli at Whitburn on Monday. That's before Whitburn takes on Bondwell for the second time. That's probably their biggest hurdle to stay undefeated.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, with the Pacelli girls, what they were able to beat Assumption, I think, is a tall task. It's only happened once this season, so I think that they're going to give a very good game to Wittenberg there on Monday. But for Pacelli, nothing's easy when you've got just, that two-headed monster in scoring, as well as the rest of their lineup is balanced. They're good.
Got about a minute to go here. 1 minute. Anything that you want to kind of finish off with?
I just love the way that some of these conferences, games are starting to get weighted more than they ever have. It's coming down to those moments where you can't take a loss. Your team has to be at its peak performance. We've got to come out and have a good showing at night. We've got to, and maybe they battle through things. Like Auburndale at Newman yesterday. One of the first things Coach Weinfurter talked about, I got a couple guys sick. We're not feeling bad. We'll see how we play. All these little things that are mixing, matching the soap opera of high school basketball are coming to play, which for us as spectators becomes a lot of fun when these teams can war with each other for these conference victories, still trying to have some seeding implications possibly, and get their teams best prepped to finish it out strong and get on that road to the final destination of how far they can get in the playoffs.
Hopefully next week I'll have a better voice. Thank you.
No, all good. Chad made it through, so we're all proud of him. Good job. Thanks again for having me.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.